What's up, guys? Welcome back to your favorite New York Jets subscription podcast, Badlands. It's the other guys. I'm your host, Jake Chatsky, joined by my co-host, Paul Kilgallen. Paul, it's cut day. How we doing? How we feeling?
We're doing all right. I'm down here at the Jersey Shore, hanging out with the family. Had to break away some time for the pod here. Exciting day. Some surprises. Definitely some weird stuff when the news came out. I think we all needed to relax a little bit after a couple tweets that we saw, but we're ready for it. So let's go.
We absolutely are. You can tell this is the other guys because I'm doing this live from my kitchen and Paul is in the garage. Not quite the professional setups that we get from Joe and Connor, but we're making it work on cut day to bring you guys some awesome content. So just to really quickly run through the initial 53-man roster as it stands right now. We're going to try not to list off all the names because that's terrible podcasting, but the Jets roster as it looks right now, we got the two quarterbacks in Wilson and Rodgers, four guys in the running back room, including Breece Hall, Dalvin Cook, Michael Carter, and Izzy Abanikanda. They're keeping 7 receivers, 4 tight ends, including Kenny Yeboah. They've got 10 offensive linemen, 9 defensive linemen, 6 linebackers, 5 corners, including Bryce Hall, 4 safeties, including Ashton Davis. I'm sure we're going to have to talk about those two at some point. And, of course, the 2 special teamers. And I think a lot of people's heart dropped when this list first came out and we only saw 2 special teamers. Thomas Morstead, not on that list. People freaking out. Obviously, there's plenty of roster gymnastics still to come. He tweeted out the Aaron Rodgers relax as you referenced. So knowing that in all likelihood he's going to be back and there's a couple other guys that are going to be added to this roster when IR stuff comes through and things like that. Who are you most surprised to see cut by this team?
Yeah, there were a couple, I think. I think Nick Bawden surprised me. A lot of people were talking about kind of the value of having a fullback in this offense, and it almost became popular over the last couple of weeks to just kind of say that he was definitely going to make the team. Malik Taylor surprised me because of his history with Rodgers, and kind of he had been kind of just a name that was floating around out there a lot. Bruce Hector, I wouldn't say it surprised me, but I think it was really going to come down to him or Tanzel Smart. So I'm a little surprised that they're both gone, and I would expect to see one of them back on the practice squad. Kuntz, just because we drafted him. It's kind of odd to see a guy you drafted, even if it's in the 7th round, just be let go like that. And I think because of kind of the physical freak traits that he has, that's a guy you're probably going to see scooped up by somebody else. But if not, I'm sure we'll be happy to grab him back on the practice squad. My biggest is Trey Dean. The guy played really, really well in the preseason, made a bunch of tackles, was pretty good in pass coverage. I think, maybe not so much of a surprise hearing the way the coaches talked about Ashton Davis in the press conferences the last couple of weeks about how valuable he is on special teams and things like that. But for me, it just kind of feels like Ashton Davis, we're in year 3 or 4 now, and at a certain point, it feels like, okay, maybe you didn't hit on that one. But obviously the coaches feel differently, and they feel like he brings a lot of value on the special teams. So Trey Dean is one that I would say is unlikely to come back to the practice squad. I really think somebody else will grab him, and we won't be able to keep him and develop him.
Yeah, it seems like the classic case of Joe Douglas just not being able to get over the fact that he spent a 3rd-round pick on Ashton Davis. And by all accounts, Trey Dean did everything he could to make this roster, and he showed out his talent. And you're right, he's a name that's on this list. I would be very surprised if we were able to scoop him up on the practice squad. I just have that feeling that he's going to get claimed somewhere and end up showing out, and it's going to be Jason Pinnock 2.0, where we let a NFL caliber safety out of the building yet again, unfortunately. One name you didn't mention that I'm not surprised got cut from a talent perspective. I'm just more surprised because he seemed like an Aaron Rodgers guy, was Tim Boyle. I think they may be able to do some trickery where they can get him back into that emergency 3rd quarterback slot without maybe necessarily having it count for a roster spot. But just to see the front office where it was like, we only, made this guy a backup because of the fact that Aaron Rodgers is QB1, to see him not make the team was something that kind of stood out to me as like, okay, maybe, the quarterback one isn't fully running the show, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing. I think a lot of people eyed him as a name of someone who could get cut. I was just surprised to see them actually pull the trigger. Flipping to the other side of the coin, the positive side of the coin, Who are you surprised to see make this roster?
Yeah, I got a couple here as well. I think, certainly Kenny Yeboah is one that, it's another guy that's been kind of floating around the team for several years. And to see him kind of crack the roster at this point instead of just going to the practice squad as he always is, was a little surprising to me, especially, like I said earlier, with Zach Kuntz investing a 7th round pick and kind of the physical nature of what he does. And you would think that they would want to carry kind of an athletic project as that 4th tight end spot rather than going with Kenny Yeboah. But hey, if the guy earned it, the guy earned it. And then my other one is Irv Charles. I think, that's probably my biggest surprise make, just in terms of there was so much conversation at the receiver spot around Gibson and around Brownlee and even around Malik Taylor, and then all of a sudden Irv Charles out of nowhere makes the spot. And I think, a lot of people were assuming that when Corey Davis goes, who's going to be that big body? A lot of people were just kind of assuming it was going to be Brownlee, and he did make the team, but here we are. We have Irv Charles too, and he's 6'4". I think he only made like 3 catches in the preseason, but they were pretty big, chunky catches. I think they were like 20 yards average or something like that. And so he's another surprise. I think Chaz Surratt is a surprise too.